Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Robert Yen. I'm the maths publisher at Nelson Cengage, and I've left my email address there at the bottom of the screen, as well as the website address of the Nelson QCE Math series. So we're here today with Anna Wethereld, who's one of the authors on this series. And we're going to look at what's new in general maths. So what's new in the syllabus, and also what's new from Nelson Maths, which is a new series that we are publishing. It replaces the Nelson Q Maths series. So also on the panel we have Amanda Cunnington from our sales team, and she'll be able to answer any questions regarding sales and publication dates, availability, prices, that sort of thing. So if you have any questions about anything, make sure you type them in the Q&A box, not the chat box, the Q&A box, and we'll try to answer them as we go. And David Truman is another learning consultant that you might know of, but he's not on this call today. Okay, so we are publishing Nelson Maths for years 11 and 12. So we're publishing for general maths, and these are the authors there. It's very important that you know that these authors are based in Queensland, and they're Queensland teachers, and they have taught the course since it was introduced 4 or 5 years ago. We're also publishing for essential maths and maths methods, and there you can see the author teams for those ones. If I have time, I'll talk more about those people, those authors in a minute at the end of the session. We have also been very busy in the background writing and publishing for years 7 to 10. So we have a new year 7 to 10 series, also called Nelson Maths. So now we can offer a 7 to 12 solution. And what's different about our 7 to 10 series is that when we get to years 9 and 10, we actually have 2 levels of text. We have an advanced level for students who might want to fast track through the years 9 and 10 curriculum and head towards maths methods or specialist maths. And we've also, these are the prices, so $79.95 for the print book that comes with a code for Nelson MindTap, our online platform of resources, and these will be published in October and November. We do have a sample chapter from every book, each of those books available for you to look at, and we'll be going through the general maths one today, and we will also have full page proofs from the start of term 3. Okay, I'll bring Anna on now, and she's going to talk to you about the new syllabuses and I guess her experience as being a member of the author team.
Thanks, Robert. It's been really exciting to be part of the new author team for the Nelson books. And as Robert said, all of us have been teachers here in Queensland with varying different experiences across the QCEE, marking, endorsement, all of those types of things. To me, the syllabuses are a welcome change. I think that the QCEE has addressed a number of the issues that existed in that previous version. In terms of the amount of change, really we're looking at about that sort of 10% sort of mark. And in Maths General, there really isn't a lot of change other than moving topics around, particularly across that Unit 2, Unit 3 boundary. In terms of the way in which we have tried to write the books, it has been very much focused on what the syllabus says, how the syllabus says it, and making sure that we present the information in a nice, digestible way for students. And the other thing that's really important in terms of the way in which we've done this is emphasising the style of questions that students will have to sit in that external examination. So you will find across our exercises that we've integrated those styles of questions into there. Thanks, Robert. The other thing, there's really been no change in terms of the major domains of the Mathematics General syllabus. So, you know, we get to keep working in those nice common areas.
Okay. One thing that's new in the syllabus that we've noticed at the front is that it talks about the science of learning, and about strategies for retaining and recalling information from for assessment. And it's based on current research into cognitive science. So I just want to lead you briefly into these three strategies, because when we saw this, we were quite excited because we had already developed a textbook series that covers and implements these three strategies. So the three strategies are the spacing effect, the retrieval effect, and interleaving. And some of you may have already had some training in what these things mean or have some knowledge. So the first one's called the spacing effect. So if you study or learn a unit of work, it's important to leave gaps between your study sessions, between learning concepts from the same topic. So I've got here what's the, I guess, the optimum level. I think the times aren't that really important, but I guess the spaces between taking a break after a session of study is. So at the top of the screen, you see of the graphic, you can see study session going for half an hour, have a break, half an hour, have a break, and so on. And then you also have the second one there where you study or learn for 1 hour, have a break, 1 hour, have a break, and so on. And then you've got the more traditional way of studying a block of 4 hours and just learning as much as you can. Okay, so it turns out that the current research into brain science favors this thing called spacing. So after half an hour of study, have a break, and then go back to studying concepts from the same topic. And what's the logic behind that? Well, having a rest and returning to concepts enhances retention. So it's the opposite of that would be learning all the concepts in a single block. So if you, and those of us who've been teaching students and advising students know that cramming before an exam is not a good idea. Binge learning, not a good idea, because if you do that, you tend to remember in the short term, but you do forget it in the long term. And that's especially important if you've got a big exam at the end of the year or at the end of 2 years. So having a break and going back to it strengthens your long-term memory. And I think all good teachers already know this and probably have been using that, or probably has gradually developed strategies like that in their teaching. You've got to have a gap, like when students are getting bored, or even when you're getting bored and you've got a tedious task, it does help to have a break, let the brain do its thing, let the brain absorb the new knowledge, and then come back to it, and you can actually learn better because you've come back to it in a different mood. So sometimes when you have a problem that you can't solve, it's a good idea to leave it, or even to sleep overnight. And sometimes during that resting time, the solution comes back to you. And then we've got the retrieval effect. That is making sure that after a short period of study, you do a quiz or not a formal exam, but you do a practice test or something like that. Anyway, do some recall exercises. So this graph here shows the results of a study where they got everyone to study for 7 minutes, and then they broke the group up into two, and the yellow group, they just continued to study. They just did more study. And then the second group, they actually did a practice test or a quiz on what they had studied. And then 5 minutes later, they had a final test. Now, the ones who studied more did do better, a little bit better than the ones who took a practice test. But if the final test happened 2 days later, you can see what happens. Everyone has forgotten some things, right? But the students who had done the practice test actually did significantly better than the ones who just studied more. And then after 1 week, so this is where the long-term memory is coming in, the differences are even more significant. So it is important to practice and revise your work constantly. And the opposite of that would be just learning a topic and never being quizzed or having learning feedback on it. And sometimes as teachers, we are guilty of doing one topic, forgetting about it, going on to the next topic, and never going back to the first topic, never revising revising that topic. So it's important to have these deliberate and precise memory exercises to build key knowledge. It's also important that students struggle to remember things without referring to notes, because if they struggle, then they'll remember it. It's actually imprinting into their memory. So the more the struggle, the more the learning will stick. Okay, the third strategy is called interleaving. So what interleaving is the learning of concepts or topics that students cover 2 or 3 different areas over the same period. So the more traditional method, you've got topic A, topic B, topic C, topic D, and you just learn them each in a block. So it's called blocking. So you learn all the number topics together, then all the algebra, then all the measurement, then all the statistics, right? But interleaving is actually mixing them up. So it might be doing one topic from number for 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever, and then changing it up to doing something else, statistics, for example, and then changing it up and doing measurement. This is sometimes counterintuitive, but it also makes sense. Well, that's actually intuitive, but sometimes when you're doing something, the same thing for too long, it does get boring, and you do need to have a bit of a change and do something else. And then you can go back to what you were doing originally with a fresh mind, and the learning's better because you're actually, well, what are you doing? You're spacing there, and you're also retrieving, because you're leaving a gap between the two, learning the topic and learning the topic again, but you're also doing retrieving because you're having to remember what you learned last time. So it helps, interleaving helps long-term recall, but whereas blocking can lead to boredom or forgetting. The other thing that the researchers found was by learning multiple concepts, students have more opportunities to distinguish between related concepts and see a bigger picture. So they might see relationships between number and algebra, between algebra and measurement, for example. Now, normally I would be against people multitasking because I'm pretty traditional, but now I can see that if you multitask, you actually get the bigger picture, and you actually appreciate the smaller tasks. So having that whole picture allows you to appreciate where the smaller topics or where they belong. Now, I did say interleaving can seem counterintuitive, but this is a direct quote from the syllabus. Participants often felt that they had learnt more with blocked study, but their performance in testing indicated greater learning through the interleaving approach. So any questions or comments? Anna, do you have anything to add to that? Okay.
No, I think you've explained that really well.
Oh, thank you. So like I said, we were quite impressed when we saw that, because we've always had this philosophy at Nelson to publish textbooks that include these kinds of memories and memory strategies and learning strategies. So how do we implement it in Nelson Maths? Well, we make sure our chapters alternate between different topic areas. Now, sometimes we do get resistance from more traditional teachers who want us to write the textbook in the exact order of the syllabus, but that would be boring if you had to do all the algebra first and all the measurement second. And also, sometimes there's a logical way of teaching maths where you do have to mix it up, and you do have to do a bit of this, a bit of that before you can, get to where you want. So in our textbooks, we have every exercise begins with a recap of 2 questions from the previous lesson. So that's like something that might happen at the beginning of a lesson that a teacher would do, revise two questions from the previous lesson. And then we have the normal mastery questions, which is your conventional textbook style drill and practice questions. But every exercise also ends with an exam practice questions. So they are either from past QCE exams or their exam style questions. So for year 11 especially. And then every chapter ends with 2 cumulative exams. So these are mini QCE exams that contain questions from the current chapter and the previous chapter 50-50. So half the questions are from the current chapter, but the other half are from the chapters in the past. So just like a real QC exam. So we mixed it up there. Okay, and so let's have a this is how we've covered the topics over units 1 to 4. So units 1 and 2 is our year 11 book. And you can see there, we have interleaved there. We have tried to mix it up, and we have covered units 1 and 2 in 12 chapters from the different domains. And then the same with units 3 and 4. Okay, so you can tell from the names of the chapters that the types of topics that we are covering. Okay, well, let's have a look through the syllabus, the new syllabus or the revised syllabus, and point out what's changed. But as we said before, out of all 4 courses, general maths has probably had the least amount of change. So Anna will start with Unit 1 and Topic 1.
So in the consumer arithmetic topic, there really hasn't been much change in the content. Really, the key differences between the 2019 syllabus and this one is some of the cognitive verbs they're using on the dot points. They've streamlined a few of the content statements, but fundamentally the material is reflective of what we had before. And yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. Now, one thing I will point out is that this particular topic from within the syllabus actually is connected. You may see on the bottom right-hand part of your screen, there is a 1, incomes and budgets, 3, prices and shares. Those are the actual topics, the chapters within the textbook that deal with this content itself.
Okay, topic 2 is shape and measurement. Nothing has changed. It doesn't look much there, 3 dot points, but it just does go through Pythagoras' theorem, perimeter area, surface area, volumes, and capacities of all the different solid shapes, and that's covered in chapter 2, length, area, and volume. Yeah, you can do this one, Anna.
Yeah, sure. And again, topic 3 of unit 1 is basically the same as what it was in the previous syllabus. So we've got all of our similar figures, scale factors. Again, the main difference here is changing some of those keywords from reviewing things to understanding, and instead of obtaining values, we're actually determining values. The other thing I will mention about the menstruation unit is that they have actually broken up the content slightly differently to how it was before, where they had perimeter and area together. They've now separated those into their own dot points. And the other thing they've done is where a formula is being used or will be being used, those are now in the syllabus itself. So they've been very clear about where formulas should be, which I think adds to the clarity of this syllabus. And whether or not we like the form of the formulas, at least we know the formulas they're expecting our students to do and use.
Yeah, I know that last time in our previous editions, we got caught out because QCEE didn't publish the formula sheet till pretty late. So sometimes the variables that they used were different to the ones we used. I'm thinking especially in financial maths. So it's a good thing now that it's precisely integrated into the syllabus, so you know what the formula sheet is going to look like. Okay, topic 4 is algebra, and it's been moved from unit 2. Excuse me. So we've got substitution. Changing the subject of the formula has been removed, but it's been replaced by solving equations involving formulas. So you can still substitute the values into the formulas and then you solve the equation. You don't necessarily have to change the subject of a formula, but I mean, you can still teach it. And then there's spreadsheets and tables of values as well. And that's covered in chapter 4, linear and nonlinear relationships. Okay.
And then
yep.
Yeah, sorry.
It's you.
Happy to do it. Yep. So topic 5, we've got our linear equations and graphs. So here, what they have made more explicit is that we do need to do problems involving linear equations. I think with the way that the dot points were written previously, there wasn't explicit that we had to go into that application space. A big change is that we've gone from y equals a plus bx back to the original OG y equals mx plus c form of the linear equation. And I know I've been part of many a heated debate as to which form was best and which one we should have. But I'm team y equals mx plus c, so I'm happy with the new inclusion. The other big change in this particular unit was the moving of simultaneous equations and piecewise graphs now into Unit 2.
Okay, and now we are into Unit 2, and this is topic 1, and it's called Applications of Linear Equations and Their Graphs. So it actually follows on from the last slide. So here we've got the simultaneous equations, solving by substitution, elimination, graphically, and problems. What has been removed is solving by technology, and also the restriction that simultaneous equations have to be of the form y equals mx plus c. So it could be of the form ax plus by equals c or something like that. And what's been also moved from Unit 1, piecewise linear graphs, step graphs and problems, and this is Chapter 7.
And then our next topic is applications of trigonometry. So this is very much the same as the previous unit. Again, what they have added is a little bit of clarity, putting the different formulas into the syllabus itself. But otherwise, there has been a little bit of a tinkering again with the beginning processes from obtaining to determining and things like that. And this is Chapter 8, Chapter 11.
Okay, topic 3 is matrices. No change there, and it's Chapter 9.
And then we've got our univariate data analysis, and again, all of the content contained within this section of the syllabus was from the previous syllabus. So, which is nice. We don't have to get our heads around any new statistics of any particular type. And then leading on from that is the univariate data analysis 2. Again, same as what it was in the previous syllabus with very little changes.
Okay, that's the end of Units 1 and 2. So now we look at the Year 12 book, Units 3 and 4. So there's an overview of what's being covered. And if I look at that carefully, I don't think any of those topic names or chapter names have changed. In fact, I think it's going to be a fairly straightforward presentation now. So Unit 3, topic 1 is bivariate data analysis 1. So, and it's chapter 1 as well. So we look at two-way frequency tables, scatter plots, the Pearson's correlation coefficient, and the coefficient of determination. Bivariate data analysis 2. Well, I mean, it's all there. It hasn't changed, and it's chapter 3. But one thing that has changed is because y equals mx plus c replaces y equals a plus bx. That means on the formula sheet, instead of having b equals and a equals, you're going to have m equals and c equals. So just a subtle change there. I guess whenever the formula changes and you're studying from past QCE exams, you're going to have to adjust those formulas. We'll certainly be doing it when we write the Year 12 book or the Year 11 book as well. But we will adapt. We will make sure that the formulas are aligned to the new syllabus. Okay,
and then we've
Anna,
got our time series. Yeah, got our time series analysis. So they, I think they've made a very sensible move here by taking out that section around recognising our outliers, and then introducing the new moving averages using the mean and median for odd numbers of data. I think they've just tightened this topic and added in something that makes a lot more sense for our students to actually be exploring, and something that they're more likely to actually engage with in if they choose to look at time series into the future.
Okay, topic 4 is arithmetic and geometric series. Actually, no change here at all, and it's chapter 2.
And then we've got our Earth geometry and time zones. So here, the main thing that they have taken out is that finding distances using technology, and which I think again is a sensible removal, particularly if you put the lens of that external examination on, that it really is not something that they can test, whereas all of the other material that's there, longitude, latitude, time differences, time zones, these are all skills that students should interact with and engage with. So it's a really nice unit, I think, now. Okay, Unit 4. So topic 1 is what is it? Loans, investments, and annuities. So nothing has changed, but there has been
well, there has been a subtle change in the effective annual rate of interest formula. I must admit, when I first saw this change, I thought there's a mistake there, isn't there? That I, it should be I over N. But what they've done, what QCEE have done, is they've redefined I to be the interest rate per compounding period, which so now it works. And then I had to think about it even more. And it makes sense because that's what I means in all the other formulas, like in the compound interest formula, in the simple interest formula. I is the interest rate per compounding period. It's not the interest rate per the annual interest rate. So we've got that, and then continuing on, we're now going to formally use the terminology of present value and future value. So that's new terminology that we need to know and teach. So we look at, so we don't just do reducing balance loans, but we look at it in the context of present value of ordinary annuities. So now we also incorporate retirement pensions. So the formula has slightly changed there. So instead of that big R for, I guess, repayment, we've actually got little d, and I think that fits in with all the D's in the other formulas. I think D, I can't remember what D stands for, difference or something like that. And then present value annuity formula is now got a D instead of that M. So it's still the same concept, but we just need to be mindful that when we're teaching these concepts, we use these new variables. And then with topic 2, which is loans, investments, and annuities, part 2, we've got the future value of ordinary annuities. We've got the future value annuity formula with the D replacing the M now. And we've also got that subscript FV for A, because you know that on the formula sheet, there's 2 formulas for A, and students have to work out which one it is, but now the guesswork has been taken out. We've got the perpetuity formula there, and problems and applications.
And then we enter into our graphs and networks. And here really it was just the introduction of a few quite sensible bits of content. So the introduction of adjacency matrices to create a graph. I think that's a really nice connection between the year 11 work that we do in the matrices topic to then connect across here into our graph theory. They have widened and made it more clear the terminology that we need to use. So we now have our open walks, circuits, closed trails, and Eulian circuits. And we're still doing all of our lovely connected graph, shortest paths, and Eulian and Hamiltonian graph problems. And then in topic 4 here, what they have clarified is how they want us to draw our networks. And so now it's activities on edges, not on vertices. And there is no expectation for there to be dummy activities and things like that. So I think that, you know, that is a sensible piece of information for us, which will be, I think it's an easier way for students to draw the graphs as well. So that's in chapter 9. And then last but not least, in the networks is where we start to take it into the decision mathematics area. So we've got our flow networks with maximum flow, minimum cut theorem. We've got those various different types of assignment problems. We've also got the Hungarian algorithm. So originally it was 3x3, whereas now we've got the introduction of our 5x5 square matrices within that section of work, and that's in chapter 10.
Okay, and I think that's the end of that's the end of Unit 4. So that's our very brief coverage of it. We will make these slides available so that you can go through it in a bit more detail, because we are trying to present a lot in 1 hour. So let me introduce Nelson Maths 11 to 12 and sort of tell you what the features, what we feel are the strong features of it. Like, we've put a lot of thought into the learning design of the series, and it's a different book. And we've also wanted to tease out the difference between our book, our series, and our competitor series. So, so Anna, what are the main features of Nelson Maths 11 to 12?
I think some of the key features is that we've really immersed ourselves in the content of the syllabus, and then with, really laser precision, taken that content and found the best way in which we can represent that for students in bite-sized chunks, utilising all of that learning science that Robert talked about earlier. So, I think one of the things that, and I'm sure Robert probably will talk about this later, but a lot of textbooks over my career have got bigger and bigger, even though the scope of maths that we're covering really hasn't changed. So we've been very deliberate in the content that we've got in there connects to the syllabus. So looking across the two books, a textbook, you're looking at about 600 pages for ours, whereas when we compare our textbooks to our competitors, they are much more voluminous. There is some really interesting, lovely maths that are contained in those other books, but that to us is distraction, removing students' attention from the work that they need to actually cover. We've been very deliberate to look at the way in which we do things here in Queensland to make sure that the pedagogy, the terminology, the formulas all connect to the way in which the QCEE has represented that material, or any kind of additional information or learnings that they've provided to us. We've made ourselves very accountable in terms of the writing and being able to show that there is a clear line of sight between the syllabus and what you will see in the particular chapters, and that there is a logic flow in terms of the construction of that knowledge. And the other thing that I think is really important is the way in which we've written our questions is that we have designed them to be reflective of the style of questions that students will encounter both in class tests, but also at that final point, the external examination. So in year 11, I would call them exam style questions, and we've tried to replicate how we would do that in year 12, but there's obviously a little bit of difference because we haven't got the same content, but definitely in that year 12 space, they are very much like or using existing external exam questions.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to add that when we write a chapter, even before we start typing the first word, we spend a lot of time looking at the syllabus, then looking at the past exam questions and looking at the formula sheet, and just really with a laser focus deciding what's important, what's being taught, what's being tested, and we try to stick to that. We try to stick to the script. So we deliberately plan what we're going to write, but we also plan what we're not going to write. So we're not going to go off on a tangent and introduce all this theory that might be your pet topic or something, but it's not going to be tested. It's not part of the course. It's not part of the syllabus. It's not going to be tested in the exam. So why would a teacher waste time teaching it, like waste a period teaching it? So we know that you don't have much time to cover the course. There's a lot of content in it. So we want to make the teacher's job easier by focusing on what's in the course and what will be tested. And then we sort of free up the teacher's time to do the lesson planning, not selecting which section of the book is relevant or not relevant. So, for example, this is a sample chapter that you can get access to. It's called Linear Equations and Graphs. So it's from the Year 11 book, and you can see even from the first 2 pages, we've tried to make everything clear and concise. We haven't no long paragraphs, no history and tradition of mathematics. This chapter is on the linear equations and graphs. So we're going to cover 6 things, okay, and we're going to have a chapter summary and 2 cumulative exams at the end. And we're going to cover these dot points from the syllabus. So this is the first time we've done that. And I don't think our competitors do this at the moment. They might do it now, but we are making ourselves accountable. So we are quoting directly from the syllabus. These are the things that we need to cover. And then underneath that, we've got a little blue box that tells you all the resources that are available on Nelson MindTap, which is our new online platform. It replaces NelsonNet. And then underneath that, we have all the chapter terminology. So all the phrases that students need to know and need to use when they're learning and answering questions. And then 6.1 is all about equations. So even with these 2 pages, this is a double page spread as well. you can see all the content is set out and very precise and very clear and short, because we've put a lot of effort into making things as easy as possible. We also realize that the students we teach now are in Generation Z or emerging Generation Alpha. So they're used to looking at things on screens. They're not used to reading books or looking, we need to get their attention quickly. So we need to summarize everything. So you'll see a lot of icons, a lot of tables, a lot of infographics. And then on the side there, we've got all the Nelson MindTap resources listed again, telling you what's covered and what's relevant to 6.1 equations. And we've also highlighted in the worked examples the cognitive verbs. So determine is a cognitive verb. And then we've also got, if you see the phrase inverse operations, it's in blue there, in bold blue. That means it's a glossary term, and there'll be a definition of it in the back of the book. So, so we've got clear and concise explanations, glossary terms in bold blue, cognitive verbs highlighted in green. And then on the right-hand side, you'll notice often next to, we try to act like a teacher in these textbooks, and we have an exam hack. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that a lot of our author team are also exam markers. So they can bring in the experience of common student mistakes. So you can have these, we also add these little exam hacks that give students very practical advice on how to study and what to do during the exam. So check your solution when you're solving an equation. Make sure you, when you're solving an equation, that you use inverse operations on both sides, not just one side. So valuable exam hints and common student errors. And then again, this is 6.5, finding the equation of a line. And again, you'll notice that we try to break up the page and have things in boxes and highlight things. Any important formulas like the gradient formula is in a shaded box like this with a diagram, because don't forget our visual learners there in our classrooms. So we've got more Nelson MindTap resources. In this case, we've got 3 videos on the gradient of a line and finding the equation of a line. So that's very handy. And we've also got different types of lines and their gradients in this table down here. We've also got a section on technology. So we might be using a spreadsheet or an online calculator or a website. So we always try to include technology as well. Okay, so I did say before that every exercise is broken up into 3 sections. So I'm going to ask Anna to help us retrieve what that meant, so that you can understand it and it'll be in your long-term memory.
So this particular exercise showcases exercise 6.6. So there are 5 exercises before it. The first 2 questions that are under that recap title there, they are drawn from the previous section, so 6.5. And they are questions that test the really important skills that were covered in that previous area. After that, the second section is our mastery. And mastery really is taking the content that students have covered within that section of the book and then providing them with an array of questions that show how that content can be used. So you'll find here there will be a mixture of short response style questions, there will be multiple choice, and then there will be questions that are obviously broken into part. In some of our other exercises, you will see there will be questions with multiple different types of versions of formulas, etc., for students to manipulate. And where we've got questions where there are lots of practice of a similar type, we've been very deliberate in how many practice questions we've put in there, but also making sure that the skills or manipulation that we're expecting our students to do is relevant and that we're not asking them to do silly things that they're not expected to know. The third section is our exam practice section. And the exam practice will generally have you know, in I think year 11, most of our exercises have somewhere between 3 to about 9 practice problems. And these will take the form of short response, simple familiar, multiple choice questions. At the beginning of every question, we indicate how many marks it would be worth if it was on an actual exam paper. And then if there are part sections, we will indicate what each part would be allocated. In the harder style questions, we have indicated whether they're complex familiar or complex unfamiliar as well, to help guide students as to the expectations around those styles of problems. So here, this is another illustration where you've got a multiple choice question, you've got an array of different complex familiar, complex unfamiliar. The thing here as well to note is that with those complex questions, that they the model or the way we put them together is reflective of what the expectation is in year 12. So CF will always be in the yellow sort of colour, and in that sort of slightly redder colour will be your complex unfamiliar.
Okay, and in year 12, we sort of turn things up a notch. We'll actually include actual past QCE questions. So we've already got, so we've had 4 years of QCE exams. So we're going to try to include every every past QCE exam question in the relevant chapters. And they'll be tagged like this. So for example, this is just a mock-up, by the way, because we haven't published these yet. So hopefully this time next year I'll be able to show you these. So for example, question 8 might be from the 2021 exam, paper 1, and it's question 16, and it's worth 4 marks, and it's a complex familiar question. So yeah, we'll actually be able to integrate all the past QCE exam questions. Oh, and then we get to the end of a chapter, and one of the first things you'll find at the end of the chapter is an exam question analysis. And what purpose does that serve, Manna?
Yeah, so our exam question analysis are really nice questions that showcase how the content from that particular chapter could be represented in an exam question, but also it shows students how they might approach that actual specific question or task. So here we've got Erica, who's going on a holiday. You can see that we've highlighted sections of the question, and those sections of the question that are highlighted are those key important parts that a student needs to help them solve the problem. We've also indicated what are some of the types of things that they should be looking for as they're reading a question, or as they're thinking about how they might piece together a solution. And then we actually include a fully worked solution, and the worked solution will indicate where the marks would be allocated if it was to actually be marked by exam markers. So here, Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this question was worth 7 marks, so there should be 7 ticks that are contained across the actual working.
Yep,
so I think we're all good.
Excellent. 7 ticks, yep.
Excellent. So again, these problems just show students how they could approach reading a question, thinking about the question, and then actually putting their thoughts into practice.
Yep, and yeah, I guess the way this section of the book would be used would be, well, there's probably a variance of different ways. Like the student could go through it, or the teacher could go through it in class as well. The third option is that we are going to provide a video of each of these exam question analysis, and we've been fortunate enough to form a partnership with Joel Speranza of Video Australia website, I think it is. So he's going to actually walk through these exam questions and add his spin onto it. Yep. So Maths Videos Australia. So we're pretty lucky to have Joel on board. And when we get to the end of a chapter, we also have the chapter summary and the cumulative exams. So how does the chapter summary work? Anna?
Basically, the chapter summary, we've pulled together all of the key content that's contained within that chapter, and it will basically always should fit on a one-pager in 2 columns. And again, we've used the sort of design principle of being very deliberate in the way in which we're summarising information using tables, clear graphics, and spacing material appropriately to engage students as effectively as possible. So here, this one is again chapter 6. You can see in the linear graph section that linear functions is actually bold there, but it's a black bold. Now that would indicate that it is part of the key terminology there, and with our glossary terms, we only highlight them blue the first time they actually occur, but it is a key term, so it's bold and black in our chapter summary. Now, our cumulative exams, do you want me to go on with that, Robert?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, cool. So the cumulative exams, which Robert touched upon earlier, they are basically one size of any of the particular papers that students would do in Maths General. So they're worth a third of the marks, a third of the time. And the way in which the problems have actually been constructed is that 50% of them are drawn from that particular chapter, and 50% are then drawn from any chapters that have preceded it. So, for example, in the chapter 6, cumulative exams, you will see 50% are from chapter 6 or from the style of questions that would come out of that content, but the other questions that are there come from anywhere from chapter 1 through 5. They are written in the same form and structure that the cumulative, the paper 1 is written, and that's cumulative exam 1. So here, a third of the total marks is 18 marks. So there are 5 multiple choice, 4 short response. We've tried to put very simple instructions there, again, to familiarise students with the look and the feel of the exams. And in the way in which we've written our multiple choice, it is reflective of all of the different methodologies that the QCEE likes us to use, both in our internal assessment, but also that they use on the external exams. So that's paper 1 there. Paper 2 then is the complex, familiar, unfamiliar style problems. Again, it is a third of the size, 30 minutes for your working time there, and worth 12 marks. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we've written these exam style questions to be reflective of the style of questions that students would experience in Year 12. So there aren't lots of parts to the questions. They're very succinct. The relevant information is there, and there is an expectation that if a student needs a formula, then the formula sheet they would use in partnership with those particular tools.
Yeah, I just remembered that one of the common complaints we get from teachers about our competitors' textbooks is they teach the theory, but they don't have questions that are similar to what gets tested in the exam. So we have to stop using the book and then to pause using the book and then get them doing practice papers. So they have a lot of dual and practice questions, but not enough application questions or exam style questions. So if you use our series, you'll be, from day 1, you'll be doing exam style questions so that students don't get lulled into a false sense of security that everything's easy and everything's straightforward. They do get to have experience with these complex, familiar and unfamiliar questions as well. At the front of each book, we do have a syllabus reference grid where we have all the syllabus topics and subtopics on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, we show just exactly what chapter that thing is covered. And again, we are making ourselves accountable when we do this. Our competitors don't do this because they don't dot all the I's and cross all the T's. We do have a list of mathematical verbs at the front of the book as well, including the highlighting all the cognitive verbs, all the doing words. And we also have a proper conventional glossary and index at the back of the book. So it's a combined index as well. And then I talked to you about MindTap before. It's our online platform that replaces NelsonNet, and on it you'll find resources such as videos, worksheets, puzzle sheets, prior learning checks. We also get the ebook, an online ebook, as well as chapter PDFs. But we have this disclaimer that these resources, MindTap, is only available to schools that adopt Nelson Maths for their classes. So you can't get access to these resources if you just buy one copy. The reason being that with the Nelson MindTap platform, you do have to register all your students and set up a class and set up a course. So there is a bit of groundwork for teachers to do beforehand, and then so it is not available for if a teacher just buys one copy, or if a student just buys one copy, but that's not the book that his or her school uses. For teachers, we've also got topic tests, teaching plans, work solutions to every exercise, which are usually hidden from the students, but you can switch them on. We've got test banks in Cogniro for creating tests and quizzes, and teachers can also customize the chapter resources for different groups of students. So actually, I'll skip this slide because we're running out of time, but here is our author team. So we've got Lani, Tracy, and Anna, and they're all very experienced teachers, and they've also been in leadership. They've all been heads of maths departments and deputy principals as well. And they don't just teach maths; they teach technology as well. Anna, in particular, was head of maths at Brisbane State High School, but now Anna has also worked for QCEE and Queensland College of Teachers. And then quite recently, she even moved south and worked at NESA, which is the QCEE of New South Wales, and was the head of maths curriculum. So she coordinated new senior maths syllabuses in New South Wales. And I think she did that for about 6 years.
About 7 years and 7 days, exactly.
Okay. And then we've also got Stephen Swift, who you might remember from Nelson Q Maths, from the Brodie and Swift books. We've asked him to sort of guide the new author team along and help out, and also, just to oversee the project. And we've also got Joel Speranza from Maths Video Australia, and his day job is hybrid learning teacher at Toowoomba Catholic Schools. Okay, so last week we did some webinars on general maths and essential maths. So if you're interested, those recordings will be available on YouTube soon. This Friday, Anna and I will actually be in Rockhampton at the QAMT conference at Cathedral College, and we'll also be at the state conference at Griffith Uni on Wednesday, the 3rd of July. That's in about two weeks' time. I'm going to bring on Amanda Cunnington, who some of you might know, on the sales team here at Nelson, and she'll briefly talk to you about what's available for you to look at.
Thanks, Robert and Anna. So just letting you know that obviously at the moment we are at the stage of having sample pages, a sample chapter, so we can email that out to you if you are interested. So please reach out to one of us. And as Robert has explained, we will have full page, digital page proofs coming up hopefully in July. So our publishing dates are October and November for all of the books, as you can see, as well as having the printed book price. We also do have a digital only price, which is $29.95 per student. So just to let you know that you can have the digital only option as well. If you need to reach out to any of us to book an appointment, view samples, or if you'd like to have a little look at Nelson MindTap, David and myself can do it in person or via Teams to give you a bit of a run through of what Nelson MindTap actually looks like up close. So we can do that. So please reach out to us if we can help you. And there are our contact details as well. Thanks for joining us, and